All right, here we go.
Here we go. Okay. Today we are reviewing Cabrini. It's the film that came out a couple weeks ago, based off the true life story of the Catholic saint, Mother Frances Cabrini.
Frances Cabrini.
Francis or Frances?
Frances.
Ah, okay.
Cess is the female.
Ah, okay. All right. So for this, we're going to be splitting this up into two parts. First, we're going to look at it as a movie, as purely entertainment value. Give our thoughts on that. And then the second part, we're going to look at this through a Catholic perspective. We're both Catholic men. Anyway, so we're going to be splitting this up into two parts. And so first, we're going to look at it as a movie just by itself. And I got to tell you, entertainment-wise, it was very mid.
It felt long. It was 2 hours, 25 minutes runtime, and it felt like forever. I was checking my phone every 15 minutes at least, trying to see how much time I had left in the theater.
Yeah, I was doing the same. Yeah, the director, the director is previously known for Sound of Freedom, made by the same studio, Angel Studios. That was an excellent film. This time, though, like in the beginning of the movie, as far as like cinematography and the story went, it got better as the movie progressed, in my opinion. But maybe it was the shots, because the director had a couple shots where he had this panning shot, and he did it twice in a row within a 5-minute span, and that actually annoyed the heck out of me.
Yeah.
So he repeated some stuff. You probably could have cut about 20 minutes off this film.
At the low end,
at minimum, yeah.
But even like the wide shots that they did have, like, they were good shots, but they could have been so much better. I feel like I've been to Italy and I've seen the areas that this story is centered around. They're so much more gorgeous than what they showed. They showed like the bare minimum of like what is actually there. Like the places they could have gone to shoot these shots that would have made it so much better, and they just chose, I don't know exactly where they got that shot from, but they could have done so much better. I didn't like the filters that they put on the shots either. I noticed a lot of them had a kind of a gold like color tone to it, like gold orange color tone, and that doesn't really encapsulate what I think the movie was trying to show as much.
Yeah, well, also they kind of brushed it over because it was the beginning of the film, and most of the movie's set in America anyway. So they did that. I would agree that did feel a little rushed. And then obviously I try not to give spoilers here, but at the end of the movie, the end scene was really weird. It ended in an office of all places, and then they had like this end monologue, and it was really weird.
It kind of seemed like they got to the end of the production and realized that they were over budget, and so they had to slap some shit together right then and there, and so they just kind of ended it. You know, those kind of movies where it just ends, and you're like, but what about after?
Yeah.
That can't be the end. And then it goes to a shot, with the, general facts that you get in stories based on true events, like Mother Cabrini died this day, she was canonized this day, etc.
Her society did this.
Yeah. And it was just I wasn't too hopeful for it or anything from the get-go, but it still managed to leave me wanting more because it just ended so abruptly and wrong.
Yeah, I didn't like that. Also, another thing I didn't like was the music.
I have to agree with you there. Yeah, the music was all wrong. Like I'm sure by itself, like, the music would have been nice, but they put the wrong music at the wrong time.
Yeah.
And with a movie like this, like, centered around nuns, you'd think maybe they would use a nun choir or, something to that effect, but it was just regular
nuns.
Just a regular choir just singing, which isn't a huge deal at the end of the day. I mean,
Yeah. Well, the problem I had with it was they used the right instruments. Like the instruments, like the violins and the strings for it, were proper for this kind of movie. However, everything else was placed in the wrong position. So like you were mentioning, there was a choir track in it. they put it, except for there was one place they put it in the correctly. But other than that, they try to use the choir track as like a theme almost for the movie. And, when you use a theme in a movie, it's kind of changed slightly, but it's mostly consistent throughout a movie.
Yeah.
Except for one place, they used the choir track in all the wrong spots, and they didn't use it when they should have. So actually, this is probably the first or one of the first movies I've experienced where the movie's actually taken me out of the movie experience itself and is actually detracted.
The music, yeah.
Yeah, the music's detracted from the movie itself.
Yeah. Also, there was the issue with character development in general. Like, there was two in particular: the prostitute and then the singer dude. Like, you could tell there was some amount of development going on, but you never really saw it. Like, you go through scenes, and all of a sudden, you'd see the prostitute again. I forget what her name is, but she, like, you can tell, like, she's changed. She's grown a little bit, but you didn't get to see that happen. And I would like to see her and the singer dude, mature and grow and, like, have their change of hearts and stuff on screen. I feel like they could have focused on that a little bit more.
Yeah, well, that's the problem, is that we wanted it shorter, but maybe they probably spent too long on the wrong reasons.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and about the opera singer that was in there, I just realized it's really weird how he went out. The last scene we see him in is the big police brutality scene.
Yeah.
And that's the last time we see him. And he did change his heart, but there was hardly anything to go with that.
That character had so much potential. I don't know why you would waste it on just three scenes. I think total he was in.
Yeah,
I think
3 or 4 scenes. He was like
scenes.
5
and
minutes total.
One of them he didn't even say anything. He was just looking through a window. I mean,
and then he
he
gave
nodded.
a faint smile,
and a little nod or something. Like, that was it. And, like, I mean, I've never heard of an Italian opera singer who was not interesting and who didn't have, like, a whole convoluted story. And they hinted at his background and stuff in the movie. I don't want to give the spoilers, but, like, they gave us this big, like, hint, like, there's something going on here, and then never followed up on it.
They never followed up on it. And that's really disappointing.
And
as far as from a story perspective.
Exactly,
at least.
yeah.
Yeah, so that's the negatives about is just as far as the movie goes. The positives, though, overall, the story wasn't terrible, actually. I did enjoy some aspects of it. And the acting, especially by the lead role, Christiana Delana, I might be pronouncing that wrong, but she was actually very terrific. I really enjoyed her as Mother Cabrini in her role. The rest of the cast is kind of muddled. There was one other. Oh yeah, John Lithgow was the mayor in it. That was the other famous actor in this movie. The rest of them, I just felt kind of meh. Like,
yeah, I mean, we didn't get to see hardly any of the nuns, really. I mean, we saw them, but there wasn't any real contact or connection with them at all. And they're, easily dismissible as side characters, which they were, but I don't think they should have been overall.
Yeah, they just
kind of were there.
Yeah, it was like Cabrini in the middle, and then like the side nuns just like shuffling across the screen and then disappearing.
Exactly.
That's how it felt like.
And then you had the kids too. Her whole thing was orphanages, really. Orphanages and then hospitals. But the only two kids we ever got to connect with were Enzo and Paolo. And that was I liked the amount of story that they gave to them, because it wasn't enough to, like, steal the screen, but it was enough to, like, set up, like, we knew where Paolo came from. We knew, his mother died, and then he was living on the streets with Enzo, doing their thing, living, in the sewers down there. And then we got to, see them grow and see Paolo, do his thing.
Yeah.
No spoilers.
Yeah.
I really did enjoy how they decided to portray those characters, and they had a good body and then finished that mini storyline in there quite well.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, overall, didn't you have the one, what with the Paulo character though? The whole gun scene?
Yeah.
That was,
There was that at the risk of spoilers, um there was
yeah,
a
a
gun
little bit of spoilers.
a gun scene with Paolo trying to shoot a pimp because the pimp was trying to take away
The
the
prostitute.
prostitute friend or whatever, shoots him in the leg, and then like right afterwards we basically cut to, I think, like one or two scenes later, Mother Cabrini like sitting him down at a table and like gives him back the gun. Is like, I took all the bullets out, but that's your gun, so I want you to decide what to do with it. And this kid is maybe like 12, and
Yeah. It's like 10.
10 or 12, yeah, like
Yeah.
like he's literally just a kid. And so I was like, okay, why give him the gun back? Like, if you don't want to like take it from him, at least like hold it for him till he's like, a man. But like, she's like, gives him back the gun, and then she's like, I want you to decide what to do with it. And then they cut to a scene with him like deciding to destroy the gun by putting it into a fireplace. Which, if you know even the slightest bit about guns, that you'll know a fireplace is enough to mess some stuff up, but it won't destroy the gun. It, burn the what handles on the gun. It'll burn that. You might melt. Maybe if the fire is barely hot enough, you might melt a little bit of the metal, but in the end, it's not really going to do a lot to that gun. So, it didn't really make sense why he was doing that. Um, it it just seemed like so fake. It didn't seem like anything realistic at all.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's our overall thoughts about the movie. As I said, we're splitting this up into two parts. As a movie, the grade I would give, because I'm giving grades to movies F through S tier. I think I'd give this. I think I'd give this a C. It's very, very mid-story. Good head actress, but the rest was muddling. Music took away the experience. Some things ran a little long, so very mid movie. I don't know if I'd watch this again. Maybe in the future, like I could stomach another watch. It would be fine for me, but
If
I
I
don't
had
know
to
if
do
I'd
another
watch this again.
podcast on this for whatever reason, I'd give it another watch. But other than that, I'm not going to waste my time, and I wouldn't have you waste your time. That's why we watch them here and review them before you have to.
Yes. Okay, and then on to part two of the video, which is the Catholic/Christian perspective on this. Now, if you don't know, Mother Frances Cabrini is a canonized saint by the Roman Catholic Church. She's the first American canonized saint. So you would think that she, being a Catholic nun, being Catholic would be a huge part of her story, like a huge motivational factor. It is extremely, extremely limited in this movie. And it's almost like they were trying to compress it down and just minimize it as much as they could.
Which they were. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just obvious that they were.
So, a couple of things to note in this movie, okay? So, despite her being a Catholic saint, there is not one word about Jesus or Christ in the entire movie. You do not hear his name mentioned once. There's only one very vague mention of him, and they don't mention his name. God is mentioned like 2 or 3 times. And then the entire Catholic hierarchy are treated as misogynists and idiots who can't do anything, and they just hate her because she's a woman. And then
Which,
there's...
believe it or not, was not the case back then. People weren't sexist like that back then.
Yeah.
They were a little sexist, but differently. Like, if you're going to portray a story about a time, do it right, not just
Yeah.
throw out there.
Yeah, and then there was hardly any Catholic Christian symbolized. I didn't notice as much. He noticed a couple of them.
Some crosses at the very beginning of the movie. Maybe a rosary at one point.
Yeah, there was. I think we caught one rosary.
We weren't quite sure. There was some beads for sure, but it didn't really look like a rosary. But it might have been a rosary. It was very muddled. I they only had one scene in a church, I think, at the very end that
No,
I
they
remember.
had
They had two.
two. They had two. So one was,
Oh, I remember now.
yeah, the
The one
one,
with the archbishop,
yeah, the
and
one
then
with the
the one with
archbishop.
the prostitute at the end.
Yeah, and the prostitute was not veiled. Keep that in mind. It's big one. But yeah, so they, and this is why you got to keep in mind that this movie was made by a Mormon film company. Angel Studios is a Mormon company. Now I know there were some Catholics behind this, but the overall arch of this was not meant for religious people. Meant for Christians or Catholics. Yeah.
I
And you
mean,
also had the mirror thing.
oh yeah, I mean, traditionally speaking, from what I remember, nuns don't have mirrors in their bedroom because it promotes what do you call it?
Vanity.
Vanity. That's the one. Vanity mirror. I mean, it promotes vanity, and they're trying to steer clear of sin. And I mean, they're nuns. They have no need to look into a mirror every day when
Yeah.
as soon as they get up. And like right at the beginning, that was the first thing that struck my mind was why does she have a mirror in her personal room? Like, from what I understand, I've only been inside a convent once, and they had a mirror in the bathroom. That was it. Like, you don't just have a mirror in your bedroom. It's just struck me. I mean, it's a little thing, but it's still like it's
Yeah.
not accurate with the story. It's not accurate with
It's
how
the
things
little
are.
yeah, it's the little things you
Little
notice
details, yeah.
as a Catholic. So when looking at this, you did have some blowback. I did hear some critics say that this was a feminist movie, and I personally didn't think it was that feminist. There are some feminist
Elements, yeah.
elements
Yeah.
to it, obviously, but I thought it was more about them devaluing the men of the church rather than elevating her to
Well, I mean,
some super feminist character.
at the end of the day, though, we probably don't want to get into this topic right now, but at the end of the day, it seems like the goal of feminism is to devaluate all men. And
Yeah.
they certainly did a pretty good job of doing that in this
Yeah,
movie.
with the only good guy in the entire film was the Irish doctor. Other than
The
that,
poor Irish
the
doctor.
poor Irish
Everybody
doctor,
else who had
yes.
any bit of money at all, any position of power. I was shocked too because from what I remember about Mother Cabrini's actual story, like she did push a lot. She would push and push and push to, get to where she got, with, like over 200 different convents and stuff. But she was never disrespectful because she understood that there was order and, she was under authority, but she would, constantly badger that authority but never disrespectfully. And the entire movie, it shocked me how often she just showed blatant, I mean, disrespect, lack of care towards anybody who was an authority figure. Anybody. If you were an authority, she almost went out of her way to disrespect you in some way. And as a Catholic nun in the early 1900s, late 1800s, that's not in keeping with the character at all.
Yeah,
It's having a strong will is one thing, being disrespectful is another thing. You the two don't necessarily go together all the time,
yeah, yeah. Well, part of it's part of the filmmakers. Like I said, it's made by Mormons, Mormon company. So this per IMDb. According to the filmmakers, the film was made to be a universal movie without any overbearing focus on religion, instead focusing upon a person's life and how they tried to help others. This is a problem because a core aspect, like I've mentioned before, a core aspect of Mother Cabrini was her faith, and they almost entirely removed it from her.
They talk a lot about her having ambition in a movie. Your ambition is too great, but they never talked really about why she had that ambition, and it was because of her faith. And
Yeah.
they never stated that, so they inadvertently left a huge plot hole in the movie by not mentioning the faith.
Yeah. And then the whole feminism thing, it's actually pretty understandable because the main actress who played Cabrini did say, asked if she thought Cabrini was a feminist character, and she says, I quote, "Absolutely. I've always thought of her as a feminist character and pioneer."
Yeah, there was that, and there was also, right at the very end, when they were after the movie was over and they were showing the facts on the screen, they were talking about she founded over 200 convents and hospitals and orphanages across the world, building a worldwide empire of hope, and they were all run by women.
Yeah.
They didn't state it exactly like that, but the way they stated it made it obnoxious almost. Like,
I think it was pretty sure they did say entirely run by women.
yeah, something like
That's
that.
pretty much
And
what they said.
there's a way like I got no problem. I think women can run businesses and stuff. I don't really give a shit. I mean, that's not my purview. Can I run a business? No. Could some chick who's smarter than me run a business? Sure. I don't care. But what I hate is when people are obnoxious about it and act like it's this big old huge thing that a woman can do stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, women can do stuff and we know this. So can we just accept it? Can we accept that women can do stuff and move on instead of making it a huge friggin' deal? It's just it annoys everybody. That's
Yeah.
all it's really doing. And it's making us second guess what's happening. Anyhow, not
Yes.
getting into the feminism
We're not
debate
trying to get
right
into
now.
the feminism part
Yeah.
of it. But yeah, so in conclusion, if you are a Catholic and you want to see this movie, it is not a Catholic movie. This is a movie that was meant to appeal to more of a general audience and to make money. And it is fair because Angel Studios, it's a small startup studio that's trying to find their footing right now, and they're trying to appeal to more people. And I do get that. But in doing so and making it more general, they've sacrificed a large portion of the actual real life character. And people are just going to see this film and be like, "Oh, that's nice. Oh, she helped so many people. Oh," and then it's very surface level. So, yeah, if you are a Catholic or even a Christian, I wouldn't watch this movie, especially if you're going to look for something, a movie about a saint. Yeah, I would not suggest it.
There's better things out there.
Yeah.
And this is just it was a waste of our time. And this is not a waste of our time because we're preventing you from wasting your time.
Yep. So that's about it for Cabrini. Stay tuned for next week, and we're totally gonna shift gears here. Kung Fu Panda 4.
That's coming out next week?
No, it already came out.
It already came out?
Yeah.
Wow, I'm really out of it.